The moon hangs high over Venice. It is a sliver of bone-white light, casting long, dancing shadows across the ancient stone. Below, the water of the canals is a sheet of polished obsidian, disturbed only by the gentle lapping against weathered walls. This is Venice by night, a city transformed. The vibrant chaos of the day has receded, replaced by a profound and heavy silence. The tourist crowds have vanished, leaving the labyrinthine alleys and hidden piazzas to their ghostly residents. It is in this quiet that the city's true character emerges. Centuries of history, romance, and an ever-present sense of melancholy. The air is cool and carries the faint, briny scent of the lagoon. A lone gondola glides through a narrow, secluded canal. Its name is the Serenissima, and at its stern stands Marco, a gondolier of 30 years. His face is a map of his life, etched with lines of laughter and concern, tanned by countless suns and weathered by the salty air. He moves with an easy, practiced grace, the single oar dipping into the dark water with a soft, rhythmic splash. This is his final trip of the night. His passengers, a young couple lost in their own world, had disembarked an hour ago, leaving him to navigate the quiet waterways back to his mooring. He knows these canals as well as he knows the lines on his own hands. Each turn, each bridge, each darkened window is a familiar friend. Tonight, however, something feels different. The usual comfort of the empty canals is absent, replaced by a strange, prickling tension. Marco cannot quite place it. Perhaps it is the unusual stillness of the air, or the way the moonlight seems to cling to the water's surface, refusing to penetrate its depths. He hums a quiet tune, an old Venetian folk song his grandfather taught him, the sound a small act of defiance against the encroaching quiet. The gondola drifts past darkened palazzos, their grand facades like sleeping giants dreaming of a bygone era. The only sounds are the dip of his oar and the gentle creak of the forcola, the oarlock that has supported his oar for a decade. Marco guides the Serenissima into a particularly narrow channel, a shortcut known only to the most experienced gondoliers. Here, the buildings lean in close, their stone walls seeming to whisper secrets to one another across the dark water. The moonlight is almost entirely blocked out, plunging the passage into near-total darkness. The water here is deeper, colder. A sudden chill runs down Marco's spine, a feeling he dismisses as a stray draft. He pulls the gondola forward, his movements sure and steady, a lifetime of experience guiding his hands. The end of the canal is just ahead, a faint glimmer of light promising the familiar comfort of the Grand Canal. But the silence has become heavier, more profound, as if the city itself is holding its breath. It started as a feeling more than a sound, a low, subtle vibration that seemed to travel up through the hull of the gondola, through the soles of his shoes, and into his very bones. Marco paused, his oar held just above the water's surface. He tilted his head, listening. Nothing. Only the distant chime of a clock tower and the gentle lapping of the water. He shook his head, attributing the sensation to fatigue. It had been a long day, a long week. The summer season was demanding, and his body was not as young as it once was. He was ready for the quiet solitude of his small apartment, for a glass of wine, and the comfort of his bed. He dipped the oar back into the water, ready to push off. And then he heard it. It was faint, incredibly faint, like the sigh of a sleeping child. A soft, murmuring sound that was definitively not the water. It seemed to come from directly beneath him, from the inky, unseen depths of the canal. He froze again, every muscle tensed. The sound was gone as quickly as it had appeared. Was he imagining it? The silence that followed was somehow more unsettling than the noise itself. He scanned the darkened windows and doorways lining the canal, searching for any sign of life, any possible source for the sound. But the buildings were dark and silent, their occupants long asleep. He told himself it was the wind, or perhaps the strange acoustics of the narrow passage playing tricks on his tired mind. Venice was full of strange echoes and phantom noises. He had heard them all his life. But this was different. This sound had a quality he had never encountered before. It felt intimate, personal, like a secret being whispered just for him. He took a deep breath, his heart beating a little faster now. He decided to ignore it, to push on and get back to the main canal as quickly as possible. The sooner he was out of this confined space, the better. He was just being foolish, letting the darkness and the silence get to him. He pushed the oar firmly, propelling the gondola forward with a renewed sense of urgency. And then the sound returned, clearer this time. It was a whisper, a definite human whisper. It was not one voice, but several, overlapping and indistinct, a soft chorus of hushed tones rising from the water. He could not make out any words. The sounds were fragmented, like snippets of a conversation heard through a thick wall. The voices were low and sorrowful, imbued with a deep, ancient sadness. Marco's blood ran cold. The sound was undeniably coming from beneath the boat, from the cold, black heart of the canal itself. He was alone in the darkness, and something was whispering from below. The canal has a name, though it is not one you will find on most tourist maps. The locals call it the Rio Silencioso, the Silent Canal. It is a fitting name, a place that seems to absorb sound, a place where the usual city echoes die. Tucked away in the less traveled sestiere of Dorsoduro, a waterway time seems to have forgotten. By day it is placid and unassuming, bypassed by the bustling water taxis and flotillas of tourist gondolas. But by night, its character changes. The silence deepens. It becomes a presence, a heavy blanket that smothers the senses. Marco was not the first to hear the whispers. For generations, gondoliers have spoken of it in hushed tones, sharing stories over glasses of grappa in the Baccari. The tales are remarkably similar. A lone gondolier, a quiet night, a faint, inexplicable sound rising from the depths. Some describe it as a murmur, others as a sigh. Some claim faint, sorrowful singing. Others, fragmented whispers that seem to follow their boat. The stories live in the city's oral tradition, passed down father to son, a cautionary tale for night navigators. The old-timers treat them with reverence and fear. They advise young gondoliers to avoid the Rio Silencioso at night, especially alone. The water keeps its secrets, Giorgio says, and some secrets do not wish to be disturbed. He remembers a night decades ago. He heard a woman weeping beneath his hull. So clear, so filled with despair, he pulled away with all his strength and never took that shortcut again. These are not tourist scares. They are a community warning that binds them. Over time, the Rio Silencioso earned its reputation, a place of unease, a small, dread-marked footnote in Venice. Most gondoliers steer clear after sundown, guided by superstition and practical advice. They stick to wider, better-lit canals, even if longer. Yet curiosity or necessity draws a few into its silent embrace. And for some, like Marco on this moonlit night, the canal is a chilling reminder that in an ancient city, some places hold onto history more tightly than others. The whispers are part of the canal, integral as the stone and water. This story might have remained just that, a local legend, a piece of unsettling folklore shared among a small community. Well, but whispers have a way of traveling. The tales of the Rio Silencioso eventually found their way beyond the canals of Venice, carried across the internet on waves of digital curiosity. They reached us, here at Whispers After Dark Shorts. We are a channel dedicated to exploring the world's most baffling and unexplained mysteries. You know, we search for the stories that linger in the shadows, the phenomena that defy easy explanation, the whispers that hint at a reality just beyond the edges of our understanding. The story of the Whispering Canal was exactly the kind of mystery we were compelled to investigate. Our mission is simple: to listen. We believe that by examining these strange occurrences with an open mind, by combining historical research with modern technology, we can begin to peel back the layers of myth and uncover the truth. We don't promise easy answers. In fact, we often find that a thorough investigation only deepens the mystery. But the journey itself is what matters. If you are fascinated by the unexplained, if you are drawn to the stories that make the hair on your arms stand up, then you have come to the right place. Be sure to subscribe to Whispers After Dark Shorts and click the notification bell. For the Rio Silencioso, our plan was to mount a full-scale scientific and historical inquiry. We assembled a small, dedicated team: a sound engineer, a historian specializing in Venetian archives, a paranormal investigator trained in field research. Our goal was not to simply retell the ghost stories, but to attempt to capture the phenomenon itself. We wanted to record the whispers. We would bring state-of-the-art audio equipment to Venice, including sensitive hydrophones designed to pick up sound beneath the water's surface. We would deploy them in the very heart of the Rio Silencioso, in the dead of night, and simply listen to what the Canal had to say. The locals were a mix of skeptical, amused, and quietly encouraging. Some saw us as foolish outsiders chasing phantoms. Others, like the old gondolier Giorgio, watched us with a knowing look in their eyes.
You might not like what you hear.
His words hung in the air, a final piece of local wisdom before we began our technical setup. We were armed with science, with logic, and with an insatiable curiosity. But as we prepared our equipment on the edge of the silent, waiting canal, we couldn't shake the feeling that we were treading on sacred and perhaps forbidden ground. The investigation had begun. What is a whisper? It is a breath given shape by words. It is a secret shared, a warning given, a thought not meant for all to hear. It is the most intimate form of communication. So, what does it mean when a body of water begins to whisper? Is it merely a trick of the mind, a hallucination brought on by darkness and solitude? Or is it something more? Could it be a complex acoustic anomaly, the unique shape of the canal creating an auditory illusion, focusing and distorting distant sounds until they mimic the cadence of human speech? This is the rational explanation, the one that science would prefer. Skeptics would point to this immediately. The human brain is hardwired to find patterns, especially in random noise. This phenomenon, known as audio pareidolia, is why we hear voices in the static of a radio or the hum of an air conditioner. In the profound silence of the Rio Silencioso at night, an overactive imagination, primed by local legends, could easily transform the gentle lapping of water or the sighing of the wind into something far more sinister. It is a compelling and logical argument. The whispers are not in the water. They are in our heads, a ghost created by our own psychology. But the stories are too consistent. The gondoliers, men and women who spend their lives on the water, they describe the same phenomenon, in the same location, across generations. They speak of a sound that feels different, a sound that carries an emotional weight, a deep and abiding sorrow. And they all agree on one chilling detail. The whispers seem to come from below. Not from the surrounding buildings, not from the wind, but from the dark, cold depths of the canal itself, as if the water itself were the source. This is the central question of our investigation: a psychological quirk, a fascinating acoustic phenomenon, or something else entirely? Could the folklore be true? Could the canal be a resting place for the lost and forgotten souls of Venice's turbulent past? Are their stories, their sorrows, somehow imprinted on the very place where their lives ended? Science and the supernatural, the known and the unknowable. We came to Venice to record a sound, but we may find ourselves recording an echo of history itself. The question remains: what lies beneath the surface of the Rio Silencioso? The sun began its slow descent, painting the Venetian sky in hues of orange and violet. The time for collecting stories and poring over ancient texts was over. Now, a different kind of investigation was set to begin, one based not on memory and folklore, but on data and measurement. Our team, led by sound engineer Dr. Lena Petrova, began to unpack cases of sophisticated equipment on the stone embankment of the Rio Silencioso. The transition was stark. Venice's romantic, melancholic atmosphere, juxtaposed with the cold precision of modern scientific instruments. Locals watched with curiosity and skepticism. Dr. Petrova is a specialist in bioacoustics, more accustomed to recording whale songs than chasing whispers in a canal. The principles are the same. Her approach was methodical and rigorous. She saw the canal as a complex acoustic environment. Her goal: capture, isolate, and analyze anomalous sounds. For her, every sound had a source. The whispers, if they existed, were a signal to be found in the noise. Our setup was comprehensive. Multiple recording stations were planned. Hydrophones, listening underwater, broadband microphones on the embankment, capturing airbound sounds, differentiating water sounds from environmental noise. Thermal cameras monitored temperature changes. Vibration sensors detected subtle tremors. We were creating a complete sensory profile of the canal. Twilight deepened. The last tourist boats disappeared. A profound silence settled over the Rio Silencioso. The atmosphere grew tense. Curiosity shifted to quiet, professional focus. Team roles, checking cables, calibrating sensors, monitoring glowing laptop screens. We were intruders, bringing machines into a place of emotion and mystery. The canal lay before us, black, still, unreadable. Science felt like a challenge. The canal seemed to watch. We were ready. Section 8. The second night. The chanting begins. Emboldened by our findings, we returned to the Rio Silencioso for a second night of recording. The team, looking stressed and amazed, gathered around a single laptop, listening intently through headphones to the audio being captured. The atmosphere was different now. We were no longer just waiting and hoping. We knew something was in the water, and we were determined to capture more of it. We recalibrated our equipment, focusing our sensors even more precisely on the area where the first anomaly had been detected. The night began much like the first, with hours of quiet, patient observation. The city fell asleep, and the canal settled into its deep nocturnal silence. We watched the screens, our senses on high alert, waiting for another deviation from the baseline. The event began shortly after 1 a.m. It started not with a sudden spike, but with a slow, gradual change in the audio texture. A new sound began to fade in so faintly at first that we thought it might be an illusion. It was a low, humming drone, a continuous multi-tone sound, composed of several overlapping voices. It was not the single guttural burst from the previous night. This was sustained. As the minutes passed, the sound grew in volume and clarity. It was a chant, a somber, liturgical-sounding chant, just as the gondolier Matteo had described. The sound was deeply disturbing. It had a hypnotic, ritualistic quality. It seemed to be composed of multiple low-pitched voices, possibly male, holding long, sorrowful notes that rose and fell in a slow, mournful cadence. We could not discern any words. The language, if there was one, was completely unrecognizable. The sound seemed to fill the entire canal, coming from all our hydrophones at once, making it impossible to triangulate a single source. It was as if the water itself had begun to hum, vibrating with this ancient, sorrowful chorus. The chanting continued, unwavering, for over 15 minutes. The singing was super loud, and then, all of a sudden, it stopped. The sudden quiet was even scarier than the noise. For a few seconds, all we heard was the soft sound of the water. Our hearts were beating fast in the sudden quiet. We stared at the flat lines on the screen, just waiting. And then a new voice spoke. It was just one voice, very clear and close, cutting through the quiet in a creepy way. This was a new voice, a man's voice, calm and clear, but super intense. The voice said a short sentence in Italian. Dr. Alessi, who was listening live with headphones, jumped back like he'd been hit. He ripped the headphones off his head, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock and fear.
Play that back.
She played it for everyone on the speakers. In the quiet night, the voice from the deep filled our small room.
Sta ascoltando? Lo sento. He is listening. I can feel him.
The meaning of those words hit us hard, like a punch. This wasn't just an old sound from the past. This wasn't just a piece of an old conversation. This was something said right now. It was a clear message that they knew we were there and what we were doing. The voice wasn't talking to someone else. It was talking about us. Specifically, it was talking about the person listening through the headphones, Dr. Alessi.
I can feel him.
What this meant was more than just creepy. It completely changed everything we thought was real. The thing, or things, in the canal weren't just alive, but they knew exactly what we were doing. They knew we were recording them. They could even tell that someone was listening. This whole thing was interactive. We weren't just scientists watching something. We were part of a conversation we didn't understand. The line between our world and theirs, between the watcher and the watched, had just been erased by 5 simple, terrifying words spoken from the bottom of a dark canal. The voice from the deep marked the end of our scientific investigation. We could not continue. To do so would have been reckless, and, we felt, deeply disrespectful. We had our proof. We had our data. But we had also received a clear and unambiguous message that our presence was known. To continue probing would be to ignore a direct warning, to escalate a situation we did not understand. The primary rule of field investigation is to retreat when you are no longer the one in control. We had lost control. We had lost control. We packed our equipment in near silence, our movements quick and nervous. Every splash of water, every echo in the narrow passage, now seemed laden with meaning. The darkness felt heavier, more watchful. As we were conducting a final inventory of our gear in a nearby piazza, a safe distance from the water, our sound engineer, Dr. Petrova, was running a diagnostic on the hydrophone array. Close up, faint waveform on the laptop screen. The hydrophones, bundled together in their case, were now recording only the ambient air of the quiet square. Suddenly she stopped, her face paling.
You need to hear this.
She had captured one final recording. It was not from the water, but from the air, picked up by the sensitive hydrophones just moments before she switched them off. It was faint, buried in static, and lasted for only a few seconds. She isolated and amplified the sound for the team to hear. A voice emerged from the hiss, a sound that was different from all the others. It was not the guttural male voice. It was not the female question. It was not the choral chant. It was not the clear Italian statement. This voice was distorted, raspy, and filled with a chilling ancient malice. It sounded like dry leaves skittering across pavement, and it spoke in English.
You brought them with you.
The words hung in the night air, turning our blood to ice. The implication was horrific, turning the entire narrative of our investigation inside out. We had believed we were investigating a localized phenomenon, a tragedy contained within a specific canal. This final whisper suggested something far more terrifying. The entities were not bound to the canal at all. It implied that we, the investigators, were the focal point. The sentence was an accusation and a revelation. The documentary must end here, for this is where our own journey into darkness truly began. The Rio Silencioso still exists. It still whispers. But the most terrifying whisper is the one that follows you home. Subscribe to Whispers After Dark Shorts, because some mysteries never end.